characters and in his teachings. A few of our favorites. Joe Bag of Donuts. That's a good guy. Typically blue-collar, working class. Damn fool roundhead. Self-explanatory. Jive or total jive. BS. And the family favorite, turkey neck promoter. Total fake fraud, Tom Petters type.
And monkey shit.
Oh, and we have an additional monkey poop. Other oft-used terms, when I call and ask for a ride, and he says, nope, you're on the Ankle Express. We drove Volkswagens most of our lives, and those early wagons didn't have much air conditioning, but we had 270 air, and Larry would never, even in the winter, roll his windows up. And when I'd call him during a busy stretch, I said, how's it going, Dad? He goes, I'm busier than a one-armed paper hanger with crabs. And one of my favorites, Larry didn't have an opportunity to play a lot of youth athletics, and that's the system that I grew up in. So when I was younger, I'd ask him what position he played, and he said, I was the assistant water boy for postponed games.
Assistant water boy.
And some of these strategies were used in educating family members. My personal favorite was the method for teaching me about the birds and the bees. Aaron and Audrey, anybody younger than 16, close your ears. One evening, as I was heading out of the house as a teenager, Larry stopped me on the front steps for the big talk, which was short and went like this. Remember, that thing's for peeing only till you're 18. And of course, we had the follow-up a few weeks later. If those mothers knew what you were doing to their daughters, they would scratch your eyes out. I had my first child at 36. Fire. What's a conversation about Larry Patterson without fire? He loved to harvest, chop, split, and burn wood. Some of his favorite days were spent in the woods with Boyer Palmer up at Briggs Lake harvesting pine and entertaining all the kids with giant bonfires. Josh and I happened to use the same chimney sweep as Larry, and he nicknamed him Pyro Larry. He was a great customer, but he burned wood nearly every day of his adult life from late fall to early spring. Larry was also a man way ahead of his time. I read the other day that one of the DFL congressmen have introduced legislation to legalize medical marijuana. Well, Dad had been experiencing its therapeutic qualities for years. Larry was an avid napper, a quality I had no difficulty inheriting, and I encourage everyone to practice. His sweet tooth was legendary, and he always kept a fresh stash of black licorice or some type of chocolate in his sock drawer. His favorite Christmas gift were chocolate pecan turtles, hence their presence later this evening on the buffet. At this point in life, Larry had achieved his master's in the School of Hard Knocks because his pure genius was people. Everybody loved Larry Patterson. He has been described as one of the last of the true, genuinely great guys. And my God, the guy has a fan club. Larry Patterson fan club, raise your hands.
Your only women got into them.
Can you blame them?
No
Smart
men.
guy,
Can you
smart
blame
guy.
them? Yeah.
Kenny and Bill.
Had to have a little exclusivity there.
Sorry, Tony.
He truly had a unique talent when it came to people. He was incredibly charismatic and full of magnetism. His lifelong friend, John Iden, told me yesterday that Larry had a special aura and the best karma of any human being on earth. He was an amazingly good listener, and he had a totally selfless personality. Shy in private, he was always deflecting attention away from himself with questions about your life. He had an intense interest in the person in front of him and always made them feel that they were the most important person in the world, and he was genuine. He was also non-judgmental. He could care less if you were a millionaire or penniless, and he hung out with both. The soft tone of his voice, the slight nod of his head, and light touch to your arm were comforting. This would allow you to ramble as he directed your course through his next question. He wasn't great with names, but remembered your stories, so the next time you met, he could continue the narrative. Simply amazing. And the first words out of most people's mouths when you ask them about Dad is, he was always interested in what was going on in my life. One characteristic of his legacy that stands out was his love for his and all kids. 3946 Xerxes was and continues to be a refuge for kids of all ages. Mitzi and Larry were the cool parents. They established a nurturing environment that had boundaries, but there was always room for mistakes and forgiveness. He taught a lot through nature, and one particular method stands out, and that is his love of agate rocks. We spent hours scouring the banks of rivers and shores of lakes for the beautiful gems. He taught us to lick the stone so as to clarify its identity. He developed a new strategy for the grandkids over at Josh and Becky's house, where he dumped a bucket of previously collected agates in the river rock landscaping surrounding their pool and helped Jake and Zach refine their searching techniques. He transferred his love for all things natural to the entire family, and we will never forget the lessons on trees, grass, wetlands, rivers, lakes, swamps, and their fragile existence. He taught us not to take ourselves too seriously, and that the material things in life were poppycock. The first question he asked all of us when we smashed up the car or had to be retrieved from trouble was, "Are you okay?" Other life lessons were taught through the values that he embodied. Hard work, honesty and integrity, generosity. He would give you his last nickel. Be respectful and don't be too quick to judge. He never had a bad word to say about anyone. Loyalty. Once he made a friend, it was a friend for life, and he had no known enemies. Fitness for life. He rarely weighed over 150 pounds and taught us to love fruits and vegetables and healthy foods. Optimism. Always find the silver lining. Dignity. He was full of dignity and conscious of his appearance through his last hours on earth. One of the things that we are most grateful for is his recognition of the power of education. Amazing if you think about it, coming from a man who learned from the School of Hard Knocks. He was a self-taught genius, but he wanted a different journey for his kids, and he made it happen. It's remarkable. And his ultimate expression of selflessness was his donating his body to the University of Minnesota for research with the hope of furthering our understanding of the human body and using that knowledge to help all of humankind. Larry's, by now, had achieved his master's from the University of Hard Knocks. He was headed down to the University of Minnesota in the back of a vintage hearse with his family seeing him off from the sidewalk at the front of 3946. Amazingly, we figured he must have been directing the young grad students, for instead of taking a left in the middle of the drive and heading towards the U, they drove across the drive into Robbinsdale and took a left on York. Raised on a dare, out on York. A fitting last journey for Larry Bud, simply amazing Patterson. Well, I've rambled on long enough, and I'm going to leave you with Larry's favorite expression to describe his departure from the physical world. We'll see you on the other side. Thank you very much.